Hey everyone, welcome back to Talk Tickers, the show where we dive deep into earnings calls and try to figure out what's really going on.
That's right.
And today we're looking at LoanDepot's Q4 2024 performance.
Yep. Q4.
Which should be interesting. The housing market has been pretty volatile lately.
For sure. Been a lot of ups and downs.
So let's jump right in and see how they did. LoanDepot reported an adjusted net loss of $47 million for Q4.
Okay.
Not exactly what investors dream of, right?
Right. Not ideal.
But on the other hand, they did bring in $267 million in revenue.
Yeah. So, mixed bag, kind of have to take the good with the bad.
Yeah. So how do we make sense of these numbers? What do they tell us?
Well, I think it's important to remember the context. The housing market's been going through a rough patch. So seeing that their revenue actually increased year over year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's a bright spot, in my opinion.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. It shows they're holding their own even when things are tough.
Okay. So they're not going down without a fight. But still, that loss is kind of hard to ignore.
Yeah, true. But if we dig a little deeper, we see that their expenses jumped up quite a bit this quarter, especially costs related to loan origination.
Which makes sense when you consider their loan origination volume.
Yeah, exactly. They had a huge jump there, like a 34% increase year over year.
Well, really?
Yeah, and they closed a whopping $7.2 billion worth of loans.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of mortgages.
It is, yeah. So more business, but also higher costs to handle all that volume.
Okay, that makes sense. So it sounds like they're going for a quantity over quality kind of strategy.
Not necessarily. I think it's more about positioning themselves for the long haul, grabbing market share now while things are a little shaky so they're ready when the market rebounds.
Well, like a play the long game kind of thing.
Exactly. A calculated risk, you could say.
Makes sense. But can they actually keep this up, with expenses rising like that?
Well, they are projecting a decline in expenses for the next quarter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, mostly because they expect lower volume-related costs.
So they're anticipating things to slow down a bit.
Seems that way, yeah. And they're also implementing some cost-cutting measures, tightening their belts a little.
Makes sense. You got to be careful when things are uncertain.
Exactly. It's all about being prudent.
Okay, well, so this actually aligns with their Vision 2025 plan, right?
Absolutely. That was all about streamlining their operations, improving efficiency, and they wrapped that up successfully.
So they're checking things off the list.
For sure.
And now they're moving on to what? Project North Star?
Project North Star, that's the next phase.
And what's that all about?
Well, from what they said on the call, it seems like it's about pushing even further with the efficiency and, setting themselves up for growth down the line.
So even more streamlining.
Yeah, refining everything even more.
Okay, ambitious, but hey, you got to aim high, right?
Exactly. Got to have big goals.
Okay, so Project North Star is in motion, but there's more, isn't there? They also announced these 2 new joint ventures.
Oh, yeah, those are interesting.
Definitely want to hear more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are worth diving into.
We'll definitely do that. But first, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back to discuss those joint ventures in more detail.
All right, so these joint ventures, one of them is all about creating like a super smooth online experience for home buyers, like making the whole process easier and more digital.
Oh, okay. So kind of like streamlining the whole mortgage application thing.
Exactly. And then the other one is targeting renovation loans. That market's been growing pretty steadily.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that. Like people are choosing to renovate their existing homes instead of buying new ones.
Exactly. So LoanDepot's tapping into that trend.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Branching out a bit, diversifying.
Yeah, exactly. Not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Smart move, especially with the market being so unpredictable these days.
Yeah, gotta stay flexible.
So these joint ventures are supposed to start bringing in some revenue in 2025.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's something to look forward to. But let's talk about their performance now. Despite all the challenges out there, they actually managed to hit profitability in Q3 of 2024.
Yeah, that was impressive.
It shows they're doing something right.
Right. It shows that their strategy is actually working. All that streamlining and efficiency stuff, it's paying off.
Yeah. And that profitability, even in a tough quarter, that suggests they're in a good position to capitalize when the market turns around.
Absolutely.
They're ready to ride that wave.
So what does this all mean for our listeners? What are the key takeaways here from LoanDepot's performance and their plans for the future?
Well, one big lesson here is that you got to be adaptable. LoanDepot saw the market changing and they adjusted their approach. They didn't just sit around waiting for things to get better.
Yeah, they took charge.
Exactly. They were proactive. And that's so important in any business these days.
You got to be nimble. You got to be able to move quickly.
Absolutely. The market waits for no one.
All right. So adaptability. That's takeaway number one.
What else?
Another thing is the potential for growth in these niche markets, like we talked about with those renovation loans.
Oh, yeah, good point.
And that seamless online experience they're building that's tapping into a real need in the market.
So even in a crazy market, there are still opportunities out there if you know where to look.
Exactly. It's about being creative and finding those gaps.
Okay, love it. So adaptability, niche markets, anything else?
One more thing, I think LoanDepot's story really highlights the importance of having a clear vision for the future. Like their Vision 2025 plan and now this Project North Star. It shows they're committed to continuous improvement and they have a plan for how to get there.
So they're not just reacting to the market, they're actually shaping their own destiny.
Exactly. They're in the driver's seat.
All right. I love it. Well, I think our listeners know what's coming next. It's time for our This Is Not Financial Advice segment, where we put on our speculating hats and cook up an outrageous, but maybe plausible trade idea.
This is where we let our imaginations run wild.
But remember, folks, this is just for fun. Don't go making any investment decisions based on what we say here.
We are not financial advisors. This is purely hypothetical.
Okay, disclaimer out of the way. So what crazy idea have you come up with today?
All right, so we're betting on LoanDepot's ability to pull off this Project North Star and really capitalize when the housing market recovers.
Okay, I'm listening.
We think the market might be underestimating their potential, especially with those joint ventures coming online.
Okay, I see where you're going with this, but how do we actually play this? Give me the specifics.
We're thinking a long-term call option strategy could be interesting here.
Call options. Okay, so we're bullish.
We buy call options with a strike price way above the current market price, gives us a chance to make a big profit if LoanDepot's stock takes off in the next year or two.
Wow, okay, that's pretty bold.
It's high risk, high reward for sure.
But is it plausible? Could this actually work?
Well, LoanDepot's got a solid strategy. They've shown they can adapt and innovate, and the housing market, it always cycles. Eventually, it's got to come back up, right?
True, but no guarantees, of course.
Of course not. There's always risk. The recovery could be slower than we expect. LoanDepot could run into some unexpected roadblocks. Who knows?
Yeah, tons of things could go wrong.
Exactly. Which is why this is all hypothetical, just a thought experiment for fun.
All right, so a long-term call option, play betting on LoanDepot's comeback, and a housing market rebound.
Yeah.
It's a gamble, but hey, sometimes you got to take a chance.
Sometimes you got to swing for the fences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap things up, I want to step back and look at the bigger picture here. LoanDepot's story, it kind of highlights some of the big trends we're seeing in finance these days.
Yeah. What are you thinking?
It's like we're in this period of constant change, right? Like everything's moving so fast and nobody knows what's coming next.
Yeah, it's definitely a time of uncertainty, that's for sure. But I think what LoanDepot is doing is a good example of how companies can actually thrive in this kind of environment.
By being adaptable and, embracing the whole digital thing.
Exactly. They're not afraid to try new things, to experiment,
And to really listen to what customers want.
Right. That's key. Like with that whole seamless online experience they're building, that's a direct response to what home buyers are asking for.
Makes sense. So it's not just about having a cool tech platform. It's about actually solving real problems for people.
Exactly. For tech's sake, that doesn't get you very far. You got to have a purpose.
I like that purpose-driven innovation. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And it's something we're seeing across the board in finance. Everything is becoming more personalized, more digital, more focused on the customer experience.
Makes you wonder what's next. Right? Like, what's the next big thing that's going to shake things up?
Yeah, who knows? But it's going to be exciting to watch, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into LoanDepot's Q4 2024 earnings call.
Yeah, it's been a good one.
We covered a lot of ground today. Their financial performance, their strategy, their vision for the future, even threw in a crazy trade idea for fun.
Always got to have a little fun.
Exactly. So what are your final thoughts? What really stood out to you about LoanDepot?
For me, it was their resilience. I mean, they're facing some serious headwinds, but they're not giving up. They're adapting, they're innovating, they're still pushing forward.
Yeah, I got that sense too, like they're not afraid of a challenge.
Exactly. And that's a good lesson for all of us, whether you're an investor or just navigating life in general.
It's about having that grit, that determination to keep going, even when things get tough.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Remember, we're just two finance enthusiasts sharing our perspective.
We are not financial advisors.
This is not financial advice.
Do your own research.
Make your own decisions.
And don't forget to have fun.
Thanks for joining us on Talk Tickers. And we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of earnings calls.